Housing TV Africa, your first in housing development broadcasting.
Hello and welcome to Housing TV News at the top of the hour, coming to you from our studios in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Ubong Usoro. Our top stories. Nigerian Senate passes 54.99 trillion 2025 budget. Federal House of Representatives passes 54.99 trillion budget for 2025. Federal government approves employment of 50 doctors, 100 nurses to cater for prison inmates. Police Rights Senate requests more time for missing firearms investigation. Lagos Assembly calls on Sanwo-Olu to complete abandoned projects. From the foreign scene, US imposes sanctions on ICC prosecutor over Israel's probe. We'll begin with national matters. The Nigerian Senate has passed a sum of 54,990,165,355,396 naira. The bill was passed after the upper chamber reviewed key highlights of the bill, which outlined a total aggregate expenditure of 54.99 trillion naira. The budget's breakdown includes significant allocations for recurrent spending, capital projects and debt servicing, as well as a projected fiscal deficit. Key budget allocations include total expenditure, 54.99 trillion naira, statutory transfers, 3.65 trillion naira, recurrent non-debt expenditure, 13.64 trillion naira, capital expenditure, 23.96 trillion naira, debt servicing, 14.32 trillion naira. Fiscal deficit, 13.08 trillion naira, and deficit to GDP ratio, 1.52%.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,366 naira only, of which 3 trillion 645 billion 761 million 358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. The sum of 23 trillion 963 billion 251 million 624,250 naira only is for contribution to development fund for capital expenditure for a year ending on the 31st day of December. This bill is read a third time and passed. And I hope that this appropriation bill will contribute to moving Nigeria forward and will assist Mr. President in his renewed hope agenda to renew the hope of Nigerians in all facets of life, from infrastructure to security and to provision of even respect for this country from the international community, most especially to leave a better nation for the future generations of this country.
President Bola Tinubu had originally presented a 49.7 trillion naira budget to the National Assembly on December the 18th, 2024. However, on February the 5th, 2025, it revised the budget upward to 54.2 trillion naira, citing additional revenue to be generated by key government agencies. In another development, the House of Representatives has passed the total of 54,990 billion naira budget for 2025 at plenary. This followed the consideration of the report of the House Committee on Appropriation presented by its chairman Abubakar Bichi at the Committee on Supply, which was presided over by Speaker Tajudeen Abbas. He says the committee will engage with the Presidential Economic Planning Team to review revenue projections and expenditure while urging the executive to endeavor to submit future budgets at least 3 months before the next financial year to maintain the January to December budget cycle. In the budget as passed by the House, 23.9 trillion naira is for capital expenditure, while 13 trillion naira is for recurrent non-debt expenditure. 3.6 trillion naira is earmarked for statutory transfers, while 14.3 trillion naira is for debt servicing. However, the 2025 appropriation bill was passed with more than 700 billion naira increase in the budget size submitted by President Tinubu. This brings the estimate to 54.9 trillion naira from an initial 54.2 trillion naira submitted by President Bola Tinubu last week before seeking legislative approval.
The 2025 appropriation bill was presented late, comparison with the 2024 appropriation bill. It was observed that there was an upward review of the budget from 49.7 trillion to 54.9 trillion to cater for the difference between the details of the bill, the procurement of vaccines, and the additional funding in some of agencies of government. Recommendations. The committee hereby recommends that the executive presents the budget to the National Assembly not later than 3 months before the next financial year. This will help return the country to the January to December budget cycle. Having worked the harmony with the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriation, to the Senate Committee on Appropriation, and subcommittees of the two chambers, the House do consider and approve a bill of an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 54,990,165,355,396 naira only, of which 3,645,761,358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 14,342,689,548 naira is only for debt service, while 13,064,9,682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure.
I consider the report of the Committee on Appropriations on a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 54,990,165,355,396 naira only, of which 3,645,358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers, while 14,689,548 naira only is for debt service. The sum of 13,664,9,682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 23,963,251,624,250 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for the capital expenditure for the year ending 31st December 2025. And in so doing, approved clauses 1 to 13, the schedules as amended, explanatory memorandum, and the long title of the bill. Motion should say aye.
The bill underwent clause-by-clause consideration by the committee on the whole before the final approval through a voice vote presented by the Speaker, Abbas Tajudeen. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the recruitment of 50 doctors and 100 nurses to cater for the medical needs of inmates in correctional centers across the country. Minister of Interior Dr. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo announced this on Thursday in a statement by its Special Assistant on Media, Mr. Alao Babatunde, in Abuja. Tunji-Ojo, according to the statement, has also secured presidential approval for the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, to post medical doctors to correctional centers for their service year. In the realization of the need to protect the rights of the weakest in the society, the minister also announced approval of the extension of service beyond retirement age for existing medical personnel under the Nigerian Correctional Service to cover for the shortfalls in the short term. The chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters, Honorable Adebayo Balogun, has stressed the need for urgent reforms in Nigeria's electoral legal framework, citing gaps and inconsistencies revealed during the 2023 general elections. Honorable Balogun said this during a consultative meeting with election petition lawyers organized by the National Assembly Joint Committee on Electoral Matters in partnership with the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center and supported by UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office on Thursday. Officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, were also in attendance at the meeting. Balogun underscored the importance of collaborations between lawmakers, legal practitioners, and other stakeholders in ensuring a more transparent and effective electoral process.
Nigerian projects. So the role of the judiciary and electoral litigation lawyers cannot be overemphasized. As critical stakeholders in the electoral process, we must rub minds together because because who wears the shoes knows where it pinches. Through your legal expertise and courtroom advocacy, you help to interpret and set provisions of the Electoral Act. Your experience in handling pre-election, post-election disputes provides invaluable insight into areas where the law needs strengthening, clarification, and amendments. We are here today to listen to your perspectives. We seek to understand the challenges faced by legal practitioners in election litigation, including issues relating to conflicting judicial decisions, timelines of adjudications, burden of proof, and implementation of court judgments.
The president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Afam Osingwa, lamented the challenges of Nigeria's electoral legal framework, particularly the role of the judiciary in electoral disputes.
We must ask ourselves whether our courts must continue to be burdened with pre-election matters. We must ask ourselves whether we really need 180 days to resolve electoral disputes. No person will come to a country that devotes most of his time to resolving electoral matters and which commercial disputes, enforcement of fundamental rights, prosecution of criminal cases are not given the priority that resolution of electoral matters are given. Nobody will want to invest in such an economy. And little wonder, even Nigerian banks and companies are giving loan offer letters to customers and designating English law and English courts as places where such disputes will be resolved.
Osingwa noted that though initially the Electoral Act of 2022 was hailed as a progressive piece of electoral legislation, subsequent judicial interpretation significantly distorted its intended impact on the nation's electoral process. He also commended members for playing a crucial role in the passage of the Electoral Act 2022 while expressing satisfaction with their commitment to refining the law further.
And I think that there are several aspects of the Electoral Act that impact, or several aspects of the Constitution review that will impact on the Electoral Act. And I think that both committees deciding jointly to keep up with work together and jointly also is quite helpful. I'm delighted that we have this cream of experienced legal practitioners who are here. Looking around the room, I think you couldn't get the best in terms of election petition who are in the room.
Earlier, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, who was represented by Senator Abdullahi Yahaya, while declaring the event open, called for a collaborative effort in addressing Nigeria's electoral legal challenges. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajudeen Abbas, has called for urgent and coordinated action to address security challenges, poverty, and infrastructural decay ravaging the northwest region of the country. He said this during the inauguration of the House Committee on Northwest Development Commission (NWDC) at the National Assembly. Abbas also emphasized the need to address the region's developmental crisis, citing that this could be tackled head-on to prevent further deterioration. Earlier, the chairman of the committee pledged to deliver a mandate given to the committee to address the multi-faceted challenges in the northwest region of the country.
Over the past 2 decades, the region has been plagued by insecurity, environmental degradation, and systemic neglect. The once flourishing textile industry in Kaduna and Kano, which employed over 500,000 workers in the 1980s, now engages fewer than 20,000 due to policy inertia and rising insecurity. These setbacks have stifled economic growth and diminished livelihoods. However, we must view these challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as calls to action, calls that the Northwest Development Commission is uniquely positioned to answer. The NWDC is tasked with a mission of monumental importance. To succeed, a comprehensive needs assessment must be conducted across the zone, identifying priority areas for intervention.
The challenges before us demands our collective effort to foster economic growth, reduce poverty, promote peace, and enhance social cohesion across the region. Mandate of the committee, the mandate of this committee includes, but is not limited to, A, addressing all matters related to the Northwest Development Commission, B, coordinating and monitoring the activities of development partners to ensure effective transformation of the zone, C, engaging with agencies, departments, multilateral organizations, and NGOs to facilitate rehabilitation, reconstruction, recovery, resettlement, and development in the northwestern states, which include Jigawa, Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Zamfara state. The collaborating with private sector initiatives to promote regional development. E, harmonizing government initiatives aimed at rehabilitation and sustainable growth.
The Speaker has urged the committee to conduct a comprehensive needs assessment across the zones and develop a 10-year strategic plan to guide its interventions. Authorities of the Nigerian Police Force have requested the Senate to give it more time to conduct an investigation on the missing 3,907 firearms. Recall that this revelation about firearms came to the fore last week Tuesday during the meeting of the Senate Committee on Public Accounts with the Inspector General of Police Olukayode Ebetoku. Presenting the letter written in respect of the missing firearms by the Inspector General of Police to the senators during Tuesday plenary, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio said that the police had solicited the leave of the Senate to allow him more time to conduct a proper investigation on the matter. The IGP in the letter conveyed his shock and dismay at the turn of events on the issues, stating that the public vilification of the police force during the session was deeply troubling, particularly as allegations presented were entirely rooted in virtual inaccuracies. The police authorities therefore enjoined the Senate committee to always conduct such investigations behind the cameras to prevent the spread of misinformation and protect the national security interest.
Convey my warmest regards to the Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, while also conveying my profound shock and dismay at the recent events that unfolded during the Senate committee on public accounts, sitting on Tuesday, 11th day of February 2025. The public vilification of the police force during the session was deeply troubling, particularly as the allegations presented were entirely rooted in factual inaccuracies. This unfortunate incident has had far-reaching consequences, perpetuating a very false narrative about our institution and the force's leadership, both domestically and internationally. The reputational damage inflicted upon our country and its public institution is unimaginable. In the light of this, I respectfully implore the Senate leadership to intervene and to grant the police force sufficient time to conduct a thorough investigation into the alleged missing firearms from the armories as of December 2020. We appreciate the Senate Committee's probe into the alleged missing firearms, but urge the committee to conduct future hearings on sensitive security issues in camera so that the wrong impression will not be created in the minds of Nigerians and in the minds of the international community.
The Senate President therefore declared that there will be no further discussions on the matter as it was a clear case of misinformation. We take a pause here. News story from the build sector are up next. Stay with us.
Get credible and authentic housing news at your fingertips by downloading the Housing TV mobile app. You can also join the African International Housing Show live from across the globe through the Housing TV mobile app. The mobile app features live streaming and trending housing news. You can locate the AIHS venue via the app, network with AIHS seasoned speakers, and live chat with exhibitors. You can also order house or building materials at AIHS via this app. Download the Housing TV mobile app now from the App Store and Google Play Store. And don't forget to click on the notification button. Available for both iOS and Android users. Housing TV is also on Star Times, channel 149 decoder.
You are still watching Housing TV News at the top of the hour. Now to the build sector. The Senate on Thursday urged the federal government of Nigeria to include Northeast in the superhighway project, just as it had recommended to President Bola Tinubu for the 4.3 trillion naira coastal roads project. The Senate calls for inclusion of Northeast in a superhighway project, followed by a motion moved to that effect by Senator Mohammed Danjuma Goje. Senator Goje, in the motion entitled Federal Government Approval of 4.2 trillion naira for construction of Lagos-Calabar coastal roads and other roads projects nationwide, lamented that out of the 4.2 trillion naira roads project, only 19 billion naira was allocated for the rehabilitation of 2 out of many roads in the Northeast.
Because that at the Federal Executive Council meeting of Monday, 3rd February 2025, the federal government approved the sum of 4.2 trillion naira for the construction of Lagos-Calabar Road and other major highways and bridges across the country. It is imperative to note that in this laudable project, the Northeast has only 2 road projects, that is, Yola Fufore Guru Road in Adamawa State, 11 billion, and Karulamino Road in Taraba State, 7 billion, totaling all about 19 billion out of the approved sum of 4.2 trillion, the whole zone.
In support of the motion, cross-section of lawmakers called for the inclusion of roads in their constituencies.
Mr. President, it is true that our roads across Nigeria requires attention, and I therefore support the motion that the Honourable Minister should be invited to please speak to the Senate about what is happening notwithstanding the fact that we do not have enough funds, but then we may see that effort is being made. Today I stand before you to represent the people of Lagos State, and I'll be able to speak about Lagos Badagry Road. Lagos Badagry Road was commenced around 2023. Up until now, Lagos Badagry has not been completed. Similarly, Lagos Abeokuta is also there. These are roads that will plead that the Honourable Minister and the Senate should please call the attention of the Minister to. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to speak.
Chairman of Senate Committee on Appropriations, Senator Adeola Solomon, in his contribution, however, clarified that allocation for 4.2 trillion naira coastal road projects was not done on zonal basis. The President of the Senate, in his remarks, said that until Nigeria has a serious roadmap for constant rehabilitation and maintenance of road projects across the nation, the issue of road deplorability in Nigeria will remain a concern.
I believe strongly that if previous administrations in the country had actually gone into a serious roadmap on road construction and rehabilitation, most of the complaints we are having will not be there. As Senator Goje was presenting his motion, I was just imagining what will happen in 10 years' time when others will jump up to say that the coastal road is in deplorable condition and that nothing has happened since construction, and that section this to this, nobody can pass and all that. And you know, coastal road is easy to erode as a result of salt and swampy nature of the terrain. Until we have a serious roadmap on road maintenance in the country, and like I think Senator Edi has suggested, we should have a roadmap on how to maintain our roads and also how to ensure reconstruction.
The Lagos State lawmakers have urged Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu to prioritize completing abandoned road projects, including the Bola Ahmed Tinubu Road in Ikorodu. Honorable Aro Mushood urged Governor Sanwo-Olu to resume work on the abandoned Bola Ahmed Tinubu Road in Ikorodu, recommending 60% funding from government agencies, contractor, securities for timely completion. Supporting the motion, Honorable Sad Olumo noted that Lagos State government had allocated sufficient budgetary provision for roads projects despite contractors citing rising material costs. The House, however, resolved to take immediate action, urging Governor Sanwo-Olu to ensure the swift completion of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu Road and other abandoned road projects across Lagos. From the foreign scene, the United States has imposed sanctions on the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court on Thursday, citing the ICC's investigation into U.S. personnel and alleged Israeli war crimes in Gaza. This was said in a statement by the U.S. Treasury Department imposing sanctions against Kazam Kans in response to President Donald Trump's February 6 executive order. The ICC, however, is investigating Israel's action in Gaza following Hamas' October 7, 2023 attacks. Chief Prosecutor Karim Kans requested arrest warrants for Israeli leaders Netanyahu and Gallant, issued by the ICC late last year. The ICC has found reasonable grounds to believe that Israeli leaders Netanyahu and Gallant are criminally responsible for war crime, including starvation as a method of warfare and crimes against humanity during the Gaza conflict. The court is also investigating alleged war crimes committed during the U.S. invasion and occupation of Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021. That's the much we can take on Housing TV News at the top of the hour. Before we go, a quick recap of our top stories. Nigeria Senate passes 54.99 trillion 2025 budget. Federal House of Representatives passes 54.99 trillion budget for 2025. Federal government approves employment of 50 doctors and 100 nurses to cater for prison inmates. Police Rights Senate seeks more time for missing firearms investigations. Lagos Assembly calls on Sanwo-Olu to complete abandoned projects. From the foreign scene, US imposes sanctions on ICC prosecutor over Israel's probe. For more news in the housing sector, subscribe to Housing TV Africa on YouTube and follow Housing TV on all social media platforms. Download the Housing TV Africa mobile app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. I am Ubong Usoro. Bye for now.